All right? Communism and socialism are not the same thing. It's not about sharing wealth. It's about sharing opportunities to access wealth. The means of production, owning the means of production, is Marxism. And the government or the people will always own the means of production. All right? It's about how do the rest of the people share in the wealth that's created by that. The third is raising national standard of living, health, education, wages, and work. Wages being the most important, standard of living changing very rapidly in China. And the fourth is developing competitive skills and competencies. We're going to really focus on sharing wealth creation opportunities. So what's that all about? What are the Chinese doing that has an impact on us? I'm always thinking of us. I'm not just talking about the Chinese. The 11th five-year plan has a huge component that deals with international trade and logistics. And there's a great emphasis on this. And there are two parts to this. There are internal developments, and then there are international or external developments as a result of these internal developments, and we'll very quickly go through both. The internal developments are about infrastructure investment. The Chinese are building their way out of the recession. Not buying, but building. All right? And primarily we're going to look at China Rail because this is a relatively unique transformation for the Chinese. The international developments will look at the impact on us here in North America and what it is that we're doing, especially here in Canada, in order to meet the new challenges going forward. It's our infrastructure program to meet their infrastructure program. So it's an important issue to think about. So, China Rail. China Rail, in the most traditional way, in the order of importance, has always been about moving commodities. So since 1949, there was a massive rail infrastructure throughout China. There's a terrible road infrastructure, but a massive rail infrastructure. That was what they put money into after liberation. And so it was always about moving commodities and bulk freight. Why? Supporting traditional smokestack industries. And this is what China is actually known for, coal and steel. All right. It was also about moving people. It's about moving emergency response. And it's about freight through intermodal operations. Now, in a list of 1 to 4, those are listed in order of importance and precedence. The movement of people, just again to give an order of magnitude. In February of this year, we celebrated the Lunar New Year. We now in Canada celebrate the Lunar New Year. We don't do it the same way they do in China, but we do. Anyway, at least we acknowledge it. That's about a week long to 2 weeks. 2 weeks holiday time. Chinese don't get vacations. They get holiday periods. So it's about 2 weeks. During that 2-week period, 500 million people moved from where they worked to their hometowns by rail before the holiday, and then moved back to where they work after the holiday. Now, think about moving, just the logistics of moving 500 million people. 80 million moved by air. So there's an emerging new mode of transport. In the 1980s, freight moved through intermodal operations was relatively low. Commodities, that's the big industry. So even in the 10th five-year plan, we saw an emerging change. There was a shift going on. Why? Well, give me a break. Since 1980s, there was a heated economy. There was freight all of a sudden, not coal and steel. They were containerized goods, so something had to be done. And so in the 10th five-year plan, there was some stopgap activity around this. There was some increased movement of goods on container in a container mode. Intermodal volume increased. But most of this kind of activity, I'm not going to go through all these, really took place along the coast. Shanghai, Dalian, Qingdao, places like that. Ningbo, Suzhou, and I'm really impressing the daylights out of you with my ability to remember all these cities. I've been to most of them, so it's actually quite fun. So a lot of this had to do with ports, so all East Coast stuff. That's nice in the 10th five-year plan, but what happened to actually transformation in the 11th five-year plan? The 11th five-year plan repositioned the order of importance. Its objectives are, and continue to be, system expansion. 17,000 new routes, 7,000 kilometers for high-speed passenger, 8,000 kilometers for multiple tracks, so on and so forth. The use of electrified routes, environmental impact. Okay. High-speed passenger trains, coal is still there, and so on and so forth. So with the beginning of the 11th five-year plan, there were some real developments. One of the key developments was the creation of a company called the China Railway Container Transport Corporation. I love the name of Chinese companies. They're just like this long. In Chinese, of course, they're this long, but in English, this long. And I met Mr. Zheng Mingli. He's the chairman and president, and that's where I get all of my intel about this. So he's my source. And so what we had here was a double expansion. There was a system expansion, just as I just pointed out, and then there is a service expansion. And you might say, so what? Well, I'll get to the point. I'll get to the point. One of the service expansions is a new capability around intermodalism. Now, for us, this is kind of old hat. We've been doing this for years. Well, for China, this is newspeak. This is a whole redevelopment of an entire business sector. There's the creation of 18 logistics parks, 40 intermodal parks or terminals, 100 container handling terminals. There are unit trains. This is all new. There are double-stack DST. Double-stack trains are now in service. And what's even more important isn't so much that this is happening, but where it's happening, and I will show you that. China is not just moving down this road in order to continue to maintain its economy along the coasts. This is the new rail system for the movement of manufactured goods by container, stuff that we source. And this is what the Chinese system looks like. And of course, we all read Chinese, so it's very easy for you to figure out what all that is. All right, I'll stop being nasty. Move on. This is what it means. As part of its economic recovery plan, China is not bailing out companies, as I said, or industries or sectors. It's investing heavily, but not just in its hot economic regions along the coast. It's moving its economy into the interior. Manufacturing, transport, even export. So we have here some very interesting things to look at. When we start sourcing, how does that stuff actually get to us? How does it get out of the country, actually? And I'm fascinated by what's not on this map, and I know you can't read it all that well, but what's not on this map is the city of Hong Kong. Towards the bottom, you have Guangzhou, yes, but Hong Kong is not part of the future of China. All right. I won't even go down there at this point. What's more interesting are what I consider, and I'm fascinated by outliers. The coastal stuff, yeah, okay, fine. So we recognize all the stuff along the coast, the Shanghais and the Ningbos and the Xiamens and the Dalian and Qingdao. Qingdao is known for beer, by the way. So if you've ever had really good Chinese beer, it comes from Qingdao. It's really the two, and I want to just point out two because there's an impact to us. And that's Urumqi. Urumqi is all the way up here. I think part of the reason why I like pointing this out is because I love saying the word Urumqi. And the other is Kunming down here. Kunming and Urumqi.